Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show, July the 6th, 2024. I hope your 4th of July holiday weekend is going well for you thus far. Appreciate you joining us here. We're every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for the Minnesota Real Estate Show, hosted by Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, Scott Volmering, and myself, Ryan O'Neill of the Minnesota Real Estate Team, Remax Advantage Plus. Again, hope your July 4th weekend is going well. We are going to be here from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. taking your questions, comments, thoughts. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us at any point. Scott, good morning to you, bud.
Yeah, good to be here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Happy 4th of July weekend. Looks like we're going to have a nice day today. So get out there and enjoy it. 612-294-6949 is how you can join the discussion. Fun question we like to do every week, non-real estate related. What is something that you believe that people that know you would not, they wouldn't know that you would believe that? What is something that you would believe that people that know you would be shocked?
Yeah, again, 612-294-6949 is how you can join us. Today, Mike Overson is out. Mike has his big 4th of July party today, which should be a ton of fun. Scott, you got an open house here today, I know. Where's that one at?
That one's at 7111 192nd Avenue in Eden Prairie. 5-bedroom, 2-bath, acre lot. It's got a nice little outbuilding, 600 grand.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. Today. We're going to be hitting some new topics. Some new things we haven't discussed in a while, both related to the business, to the purchase agreement as well. And Scott, it's hard to believe it's already 4th of July. 4th of July kind of came and went here, but it's nice we got a weekend.
It is
to enjoy it.
Well, and we're going to get a little break from the rain, man. We've had so much of it. It's just been crazy. But yeah, it's nice. We're obviously getting together at Overson's party today, so it should be fun.
Here we go. We're going live on air on News Talk 830 WCCO, again, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Welcome your questions and comments. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and hope your July 4th holiday weekend is going well. We've got some sunshine in Minnesota here today as we look out the window here from the downtown studio of News Talk 830 WCCO. This is a real estate show. It is local, it is live, and it's hosted by Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, and then Scott Volmering and myself, Ryan O'Neill, of the Minnesota Real Estate Team and Remax Advantage Plus. We welcome your questions by phone or text. Comes right to us in studio, 612-294-6949. Again, 612-294-6949. Really at any point, any topic at all. Scott, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you as always, and hope your day's starting off well.
Yeah, good to be here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Like Ryan said, this Minnesota Real Estate Show. We're going to get into everything real estate related. Again, Mike Overson is throwing his big 4th of July party this weekend at his house, so we want to thank Mike and all the families that'll go out there and have a fun time. And it looks like it's going to be a great day, so that'll be cool. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us through the entire week. And also during the show. And our fun question of the week, non-real estate related. What is something that you like or believe that people that know you would be shocked? So what do you like or believe that people that know you would be shocked?
Yeah, again, 612-294-6949. In the first segment of the show, we always do like to do an update, real estate and a mortgage update. Again, Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, interest rates still very similar to the last number of weeks. High 6s, low 7s is where the 30-year fixed rate is at. High 6s, low 7s. And when we look at overall real estate numbers in the Twin Cities, These are comparing year-over-year statistics in the Twin Cities metro area. So new listings or new homes for sale are down 1%, so just very slightly. 1,523 new properties came on the market. Pending sales down about 3.5%, 1,077 pending sales. And then the inventory still at similar numbers in the Twin Cities. It's increased 12% year over year at 9,063. And then again, that median sales price, because of the shortage of inventory overall, the Twin Cities still has increased. It's up 4.1% to 385,000. Scott, really similar numbers to the last few weeks to what we're seeing here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, it is. I was asked by actually a radio listener that came by my open last weekend, Joe, and he had said, is it a good time to buy right now? I've heard it's a bad time to buy. And what Ryan has gone over is basically the second best sellers market we've ever had with 8,000 homes on the market. So why would you buy in a market like that? Well, the reason for that is even though we are moving at 4%, that's a very slow appreciation. And we could run through all the different scenarios of why it would make no sense to rent. But the positive that I see is you are paying less for a house right now than you did the first 4 or 5 months of 2022. So those people that got a great rate, 2.7, 2.8%, that's awesome. Their payment's affordable. But I would argue that they also paid 7 to 10%, possibly more, for what the home is worth to buy that rate. So if you're in a situation right now where you can go out and buy a home, rates are a little bit high, but they're going to come down to something reasonable. So then you get a home at the value it is. You're not throwing rent money away, and you're waiting for the interest rates to come down to make it affordable.
Yeah. So again, timing is important. Buying and selling, again, always looking at just the opportunity cost. If you're not buying, you're renting. What are we seeing with rents here in Minnesota? Rents are expensive. Rents are increasing. Costs in general, housing costs are expensive. Scott and I were talking before the show just about water bills and utility bills. The cost of ownership in these utility bills, Scott, is significant. We were talking about a water bill, $100 to $200, per water bill, and that's part of, I think, what's hitting everybody right now.
Yeah, we were discussing yesterday, obviously everything for us tends to kind of revolve around real estate and affordability. And it's very hard right now. If you're coming out of college, you can pretty much not buy a house. Rents, I think, have gone up to an average like $21.40 or something. I don't know exactly. I saw that statistic the other day. So they're getting very expensive. Across the board. I was just talking with Dennis, who runs the show. And when I was a kid, East Grand Forks, Minnesota, my dad went to the golf course, gave him $50 so that I could play golf all season. And I was just thinking, now they don't do that. So, if you've got a kid that wants to learn to play golf, what are you going to drop $100 a day so that he can go and play? So when we look at affordability, it's not just groceries and gas and interest rates on housing, but everything is more expensive now, and people really feel it.
Yeah, I had a question, text message question come in, 612-294-6949, asking if we are seeing more home warranties on purchases. We actually are. We are seeing some more home warranties, can be paid by the buyer or the seller. It is part of the purchase agreement itself that specifically notes how much will be paid by the buyer or the seller and whether or not a home warranty is included, Scott. But we are actually seeing, we're actually seeing more home warranties, again, with less offers. There's occasionally multiple offers, but not as much, not as common. So occasionally people are asking for home inspections, home warranties, things like that.
Well, yeah, that's what I would say. I would, and I agree that the home warranties have gone up mostly because you can negotiate now, so you can negotiate that in. Where if you go back to 2022, I did more home warranties in 2022 because you couldn't get inspections done. So it was a fail safe to at least, close on the home, have the inspection done at that point to know what you're actually going to be paying out of your pocket.
Yeah, again, 612-294-6949 is how you can join us at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We are a local real estate team agents all over Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. We help people buy homes, sell homes, invest in real estate. mnrealestateshow.com is where you can go for a free market analysis to see information about our seminars, our first-time home buyer, our investment property seminars. Those are free, no obligation at all. And again, we're up against our first break here. This is the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us on social media. We appreciate it. Mike's off today, Scott. Mr. Mike, big party. He's got his big event.
Yeah, it is for anybody out there that's listening that wants to come by today. I know Mike invited all agents and everyone that wants to come. So it is a fun day. Basically, Mike and his neighbor live on Crystal Lake, and so they've got bouncy houses, they've got fire pits, they've got a band coming, they've got different food trucks. It's crazy. I mean, just a super fun event, and we really like to thank Mike because he does it annually, and it's a big undertaking for him and his wife Jen.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Lots of fun. Mike Overson. It is in Burnsville, down on Crystal Lake. That should be a fun deal for sure. Scott, the Minnesota Realtors Association is coming out with new paperwork with the commission changes that are happening mid-August. And so there's some new paperwork every year, by the way. The Realtor Association comes out with new paperwork. It's interesting with our industry where there's a forms committee that makes adjustments to the purchase agreement, to the buyer or listing contract based upon feedback from agents, from clients. So there's always those changes that are coming out, Scott, and that's going to be starting here mid-August.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I was just looking at a thing I had yesterday on Facebook where somebody had printed, because of the changes that are coming up with the lawsuit with the Realtor Association, that one person says we'll see half the agents leaving the business. And Parker Pemberton had written, which I respect Parker, the best agents will sell more and teams will pivot quicker than brokerages. Those brokerages will cut expenses and they'll be fine, etc. And what I had said, and this is what I believe, most of us have always explained the split commissions to our sellers. It's no different now. Sellers have always been able to make a choice of what they're going to pay a buyer's agent or nothing. And that has not changed. It will be the exact same. And so for those that have not had that discussion with how commissions work, yes, do you have to have a discussion? In my opinion, you should have been having that discussion already. And so there isn't a big change other than the seller needs to be aware of what they are doing or what they're offering to the public.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. A text saying, do you guys have any tips to improve curb appeal? We talked a little bit over the last couple of weeks about return on home improvements. They said a garage door, a front door, very important things you can do. Obviously, painting the property, landscaping, maintaining the yard presentation-wise, little things that can be done, Scott, because people will make that impression. They drive up and it's that first look.
That's right.
What is it like? And you don't have to go drop a ton of money on new landscaping. Sometimes it's just weeding, sprucing it up a little bit.
Or the reversal. Let's say you are a landscape enthusiast.
Sure.
And you love landscaping. So your house is full of, you planted 45 trees and you've got these type of bushes and whatever else, and you believe it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. The discussion has to happen sometimes that a lot of people don't want to take care of that type of a landscape.
Too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And so try telling somebody that just put all that money in landscaping and we got to take out half of it to simplify it. That happens as well.
Here we go. We're going back live on air, WCCO. Hope your weekend's going well, everybody. Hey, welcome back to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We are live, local. We follow Mr. Lindis in the Home Improvement Hour. It's always great to hear some home improvement tips. Had a question about improving curb appeal. And we were just talking about, Scott, you brought up an interesting point. Again, sometimes it's the simple things. Front door, garage door, paint, trimming, cutting the lawn, pulling weeds, some basic things. And we talked about landscaping. Sometimes for people that are landscape enthusiasts, you can go overboard and really, just be like, wow, Mongo, lots of landscaping. But for some buyers, that's a prohibitive thing. They look at it and say, oh my gosh, how am I going to maintain this? I think of one of our neighbors in Bloomington, beautiful landscaping. But when I walk Minnie, our dog, when Minnie and I walk by, I think, oh my gosh, how would I maintain that? And that's something that you have to think about when you're buying or selling homes. You got to think about, well, it's like the busy road, Scott. Well, it doesn't bother me. Like when I lived on Lindale in Bloomington, it didn't bother me. If I'm going to try to resell that duplex, it's going to bother the buyer.
Yeah, it is. The house that comes to mind, and I think agents out there listening to the show, we've all done this. If you're selling a relative's house that you've been to 1,000 times, you don't really have your realtor eye on when you're there, because it's, so the one that I think about is my in-laws house in Lakeville, Credit River. Sold it for him years ago, and we've been over there all the time. And it was an incredibly gorgeous house.
Yeah.
Well, then I listed, I'm sorry, I didn't even list. I went out for the photos, and for the first time, I looked at the house with a discerning lens, and they had landscaping. I mean, everything you could possibly do from a landscaping perspective was there. And it was the biggest feedback issue that we had. People did not want to deal with having to take care of all of that stuff. And because people don't understand, well, how much does it cost to have somebody come in and rip it out? Well, the seller doesn't want somebody that's going to rip it out because they put their blood, sweat, and tears in it. That's what happens.
Yeah, again, text message. And again, we're live. We're here at CCO, downtown Minneapolis, looking out, seeing the sunshine here. And we welcome your interaction. Don't hesitate to reach out. I had a text come in that says, guys, I live in a rural area with 4 acres. I'm thinking of building a shed for a boat, lawnmower, etc., for storage. If I sell in 5 to 10 years, would my value increase enough to recoup the shed cost of that, Scott?
Just did this with a client of mine.
Yeah, what do you think?
Literally just did it out.
I have some thoughts.
Out in Montgomery, and he wanted to put a shed on an outbuilding that he could use all of his boats and be able to use it. But then, of course, he's going to have to sell that in the future, and what kind of a market does it have for it? Well, there's 2 things. One, if you're going to do a shed like that, my advice to my client was to make sure it's still on a lot that you can eventually build a house on, so that you haven't used up all the space, you're not creeping into waterways, etc. But the simple question is, do I think that, you bought a lot for $200,000 and you put $100,000 shed on it? Do I think you can get your money back? Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that have the same kind of thought that you have. They don't want to pay for a storage facility, and they still want to be able to go out and use it. And so, yeah, I think it's relatively protected risk.
Yeah, and especially, again, if it's something you think about that for the new buyer. Always think about, well, how would a new buyer, is this something more specific to me as an owner, or is this something that would appeal? And again, people like that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, there's always the big thing too. I always say, with your primary residence, where you're living, what's your personal enjoyment from that for the 2, 3, 4 years of having the new, the new shed or the landscape? There's resale is obviously, it's a very important factor. But yeah, we appreciate you joining us and texting that in to the show. Scott said, number 1 tip, guys, for a first-time home buyer. My son is thinking of buying a home. What's your number 1 tip there, young man?
My number 1 tip is to be with a real estate agent that he likes, that he can respect, that he knows that they're telling the truth. Because there's a lot of ways to navigate a first-time home buyer right now. It depends on the price range they're looking in, what the activity is going to be. Are you going to be competing every time? Are they FHA? Are they conventional? So having somebody that can educate them, because it can be frustrating. If you have a limitation, you're only qualified for X, and you have to do an FHA loan. At least having them understand that that's an uphill battle and how we can go against it. And obviously, we've got great agents on the team. We'd love to help you out, but that's what I would look at, Ryan.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think it's so important to have a trusted advisor through that process who can help you understand the big picture. And sometimes what happens is you have your uncle come along. I'm an uncle to a lot of nieces and nephews. You have mom or dad come along, and they think about what it was like for them when they bought a house. And of course, they want to protect their son or daughter or grandson, granddaughter. And again, I think if you find somebody you really that your son connects with, that you have a level of trust with, that's important to guide you through that process. Because again, things change. We were just talking about the forms. The realtor forms are changing in August. Every year, things are changing. If you don't have an agent that is with it, that is a problem. And again, if you're going directly, if you're calling on Zillow, on Remax.com, on EdinaRealty.com, you're calling the agent on that listing. He or she represents the seller and doesn't represent you as the buyer. And so that's the whole idea of having somebody on your side to advocate for you, do a market analysis, give you guidance, Scott. It's so important to have a buyer's agent.
Yeah, it is. Well, for example, here's a misunderstood thing from parents. And again, parents are a little bit more old school. So here's this very, very valid question. If I have my son or daughter, in fact, Jordan's buying a house right now, would you rather buy a house that you can get $50,000 off the listing price right now, or would you rather buy a house where there's 5 offers on it in the first day and you've got to write $15,000 over? My advice is that the house that had 5 offers on it in the first day that you had to pay $15,000 over is by far the better house, because in this market, nothing sits unless there's a reason it sits. So, but that was listed for $400,000, Scott, and I got it for $350,000. That's great, parents, as long as the house wasn't worth $300,000, and I see that the most. I got a great deal for my daughter. She got $50,000 off the house.
And then because you feel like you're getting
it's a big deal. It's great. If I buy a pair of jeans that are for $30 and I get them for $8, that's great. Unless
you feel good.
Yeah, unless the jeans are only worth $2, and that's the problem with real estate.
And that's part of what a buyer's agent is going to do, as well as he or she's going to do a good market analysis for you. Look at similar properties, area, square footage, above ground footage, etc., to help you determine that value. So it's a good point. Sometimes you can't assume. That is a super good question, though. Again, one other one. We appreciate the interaction today. 612-294-6949. Guys, any other tips for a really solid offer in this market? Solid offer. Obviously, strong earnest money is important, Scott.
Yep.
Price is important. That's very important to the seller. So earnest money, price, the type of financing you're doing, and who's your lender. Part of the reason we work with Mike Overson, he's local. Agents, brokers, teams know him. They trust him. So that's an important factor. Who is your lender? Because not all money, the money doesn't always show up on the date of closing.
Yeah.
Those are a couple things coming through my head.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking of it from a little bit of a different angle. Is before somebody asks me how do we write a strong offer, it always depends on our position of power. And what I mean by that is the house been on the market for 6 months. They've gone through 3 price reductions, and now we're going to write our offer. Well, we're going to come in. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to ask for a lot of stuff. Versus, hey, Scott, we've been on the market for a day. There's 10 offers coming in. That's a wholly different way approach of being aggressive. But yes, let's take that scenario. 10 offers. We have to write our best offer. I use a scorecard. Yeah, which is if you're going to have an inspection, that's -1 point because somebody won't. If you are going to have a contingent on financing, if you're going to have a contingent on et cetera, appraisal. So the more you can write in there with limited contingencies or no contingencies, that's your best offer.
Yeah, we're at the halfway point of the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Happy 4th of July. And a huge thank you to all of our veterans, to all of our active service men and women right now at church. My wife and I go to Our Lady of Grace, and Edina was talking with a friend at church whose son is flying helicopters in Iraq right now.
Wow.
Sometimes we forget about all the people out there who are doing a lot of sacrifice for us all, so that we can do other things. So again, big thanks to all of our veterans, all actively serving men and women We are super grateful here. Folks, this is the Minnesota Real Estate Show. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us, and we'll be back after the break. Yeah, Scott, you think about that. Sometimes we forget people actively serving. I was just talking to him at church. He said, look, my son is there for a year, and they're worried. They're very worried. I mean, I guess he's in Iraq, but I mean, it's not, a great area.
Well, no, and my dad was a full colonel in the military, so obviously I've got a soft spot for military people. But one of the frustrations for people that are in the stuff is they come back here and they're like, there's like, I was just shooting at people 3 days ago, and here everyone's going to the mall and they're getting, it's like, of course, out of mind, you don't think about it. But like you said, Ryan, that's going on daily. There are families that are worried about their significant others, their child, their daughter, their son, all the time.
Yeah. Comment says, any problems with a condo or townhome purchase with associations? We touched on that a little bit. Associations are an important factor to look at the cost of the association. How is that cost relative to other similar properties? Yeah. Maybe your association fee is double what a similar property is. That's going to affect you on resale.
Well, sure. For every $10,000 you spend on a house right now, it's basically $70 a month. So if your association is $140, $220 more, that's $35,000 in buying power.
Yeah.
And so if you have the same condo in different buildings, one has an association of 450, the other has an association of 2, the one with 450 is going to sell for about 30 grand less, 30 grand less than the other one, because people buy on payment.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing is, with our investment property seminar we do every month, a lot of people would think, boy, no one's buying investment property. And I would say it's just as similar as any time where people, whether they're buying single family, Scott, whether they're buying multifamily property, we as a team in brokerage, we have a fair amount of obviously MLS listed inventory, some non-MLS or what they called withheld inventory. Investors, kind of similar to buying a house. I feel that there's always no better time than the present. People try to time it, Scott, but it's interesting. Some of that multifamily too is an option.
Well, yeah. Well, think about it this way. Think about if you were in the camp back in 2022, where you were like, I am not paying $50,000 more for a house than I should, even though the rate's 2.7%. Well, that sounds like a logical thought. Why would you pay $50,000 more?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Well, here's one real quick answer. If the normal rent is $2,148 or whatever it is, so that's $24,000 you're out of pocket your first year. Second year you're out $50,000. In 2 years of living wherever you live, you've already eaten the $50 grand up.
Sure.
Wouldn't you rather be at a place that you really like, that is going to go up in value eventually?
Yeah.
With a very affordable payment. So again, still makes more sense to buy when you look at that, because you are if it's $2 grand a month, you're throwing 24 grand a year away.
Yeah.
And that's as easy as it is.
Here's one tip I was thinking about for potential home sellers, Scott. Sometimes, sellers struggle on pricing. Hey, what should I price this on? And one good way to always get an idea on pricing is to look at your competition.
Right.
I know you've done that many times, where let's just say there's 2 or 3 other similar ones within a close range that you actually take you as the seller, go look at that and say, wow, this one's at 450. It's been on the market 20 days. This is nice.
Well, that just reminds me, I've not done this a lot, but I've done it a couple times, where I have a seller that I know believes their house is worth way, way more than it is. Like, I'm talking $200,000, $300,000.
Yeah.
And I have done this, and it's a little condescending, so bear with me, but I have brought in sales that are,
here we go.
Okay.
We're going back live on air. Thanks for joining us on CCO. Hope your weekend's going well, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend's going well. Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, has his big 4th of July party this weekend. Mike is, again, with Luminate Home Loans, Luminate Bank. They have locations here in the Twin Cities. Great people, great folks. Be sure to check them out. Scott, I've got a listing to touch on. Susan Mall has one in Chanhassen, 8030 Erie Avenue in Chanhassen. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage Rambler. It's got a finished basement, electric vehicle ready, a 2-car garage for electric car enthusiasts. It's close to Rice, Marsh Lake Park, shopping, entertainment. There's 3 bedrooms on 1 level and a large fenced backyard with a deck. Susan Mall has that 8030 Chanhassen. And then one other one, Mr. Mike Hilber. Mike's got one up in Lindstrom. Our friends in Lindstrom, 31468 Maria Avenue for $625. It is a 3-bed, 2-bath home. It's 2016 custom built. It's on North Lindstrom Lake. And Mike says the water sports, fishing, recreation abound in the Chicago Lakes chain of lakes. Over 5,000 acres of water. The home itself has 10-foot ceilings, Marvin windows, composite decking, luxury vinyl planking. It's a half-acre lot, 80 feet of shoreline, in-ground irrigation and gardens. And then there is a minimal neighborhood association that includes a private neighborhood beach and dock. And again, it is located near the Almonds Rat Wilderness Park, downtown coffee shops, boutiques, and restaurants. Check that out. Again, photos are very nice. 6.25 for 31468 Maria Avenue on Lindstrom. Scott, we're getting a lot of texts, a lot of comments today, a lot of good stuff there, young man.
Yeah, it is. I've got one quick listing. We're going to be actually holding it open. I say we because I'll be with my daughter Jordan. So come visit us. 7111 192nd Avenue in Eden Prairie. Rambler, 5-bedroom, 2-bath, acre lot, wooded. It's got a little guest house possibility that's on the property, and it is listed at $600,000. And we are open today from 11 to 1. So come out and visit us.
Yeah, this is a good one. We haven't had this in a little bit. Thanks to our listeners for joining in. Just said, hey, is radon testing mandatory? If not, do you see it being mandatory soon by county or statewide? I am a big believer in radon testing from a protection standpoint. You can, do your own research, and there's a lot of problems with radon, Scott. Buyers will make the radon test part of that home inspection contingency. The good thing in Minnesota is we're seeing more and more home inspections in this market. It is not mandatory in the sense as it is right now. Do we see that happening? I don't know. That's $1 million question. What do you think on that, Scott?
Well, my stance on radon, I'm not as big a believer in it as you are.
Yeah.
And Steve Stalock thinks I'm an idiot for not. So I understand the deal. But I look at it this way: whether you believe in radon gas and you think it's going to cause cancer or whatever else, or whether you do not, it is something you're going to deal with. And in real estate, we just want to deal with it. And so if you have an inspection that comes in and radon's high, you're going to have to disclose radon's high. So you're going to have to correct the radon. So it's definitely here. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It used to only be 10 years ago. It was only on reload clients for the most part, and now I would say it's on 80%.
Yeah. Yep. And again, it is. Again, you can do your online research. Your agent will help you with the Minnesota Department of Health to do that research, especially again, buying townhomes, very common, Scott. And it is our great inspectors at mnrealestateshow.com. All 3 of them have that option of including radon testing. And that's partly the idea with a home inspector. He or she's going to help you identify some of the biggest potential issues, safety issues, cost issues, those things. They help you analyze a little bit when you're buying that property. Or again, even as a potential seller, Scott. I like that when sellers do a home inspection prior to listing.
Yeah.
To kind of rip the Band-Aid off and uncover problems.
Yeah, well, and it's just smart in this market to do a pre-inspection because it's not the money on the house; it's the time that kills you. So if you have an inspection that's done and there are issues and they walk from it 7 to 10 days, it's not that 7 to 10 days that kills you. It's the fact that people understand it fell apart about the inspection. What's wrong with the house? It costs you a lot of money. So avoiding ever missing that inspection time frame. So if you pre-inspect it, it's kind of done. But that happens a lot.
Yeah, with affordability, are you guys seeing more foreclosures in Minnesota. There's not a lot more foreclosures that we're seeing. Now, these properties, what happens if you haven't bought or sold in a while, Scott, they all get listed on MLS. And there's a process with that foreclosure process, of course. And so we as agents, as the public, can see those foreclosures listed on MLS. There are some. I was working with a team member this week on a HUD home, buying a HUD-owned property, but not as many. And I think maybe, Scott, maybe it is values have risen so much that people have equity.
Yeah, you can sell now versus 2008. Yeah. If you were going to go into foreclosure in 2008, your house was upside down 30%. You had no choice. Now typically you've got equity in it. One thing we were talking about off air was doing evaluations, and in some cases taking your sellers out to look at the competing properties and so on. And one other little I guess not trick, but something I've used through the years. If I have a seller that I know, so let's say their house is worth $700,000, but I know they believe it's worth $900,000. Then what I'll do is I'll bring in $900,000 sales in their area without the price. And then I will show them, okay, here's some of the sales that occur. What would you think that price is? So if they say, well, that one's, $950, that one's $950, or, et cetera. And then they look at their house, they go, okay, we're not that house. That's what 900 looks like, and we're not it. I found that to be useful because they come to the conclusion before you get into the numbers. If not, it's like you're talking another language. They're not hearing you because they have that number in their head that's dialed in, and they see that the number you have on your page is not that number.
Yeah, very simple rule of thumb. If you have a property actively listed and it's not selling, number one reason, Scott, is
price.
Yeah, it is always price.
Always price.
And I know that's really hard to accept. Again, when you've invested so much pride, everything into the property itself. Very good rule of thumb is, Scott, is price related. One little tip your agent can do. We have some good data as agents on a tool called InfoSparks. And what's kind of cool about InfoSparks is it will show your local city, neighborhood, price range, school district. It will show the buying activity there. It will show the listing activity. It will show the numbers. What are we seeing for showings, for appreciation, really looking at that specific data and then reacting accordingly. And that InfoSparks is a great tool as agents that we have, Scott, that we can share that data, should be sharing with our sellers so that they know, hey, what's going on? Because maybe it is a bit overpriced, but maybe nothing has sold in the last 3 months.
Well, and a lot of times it's as easy. Okay, price is one thing, but position in the market is more important. So for example, if I see a listing at $505,000, I literally want to jump off the cliff because that extra $5,000 you just removed, I forgot the numbers now, 26% of the buyers, that because you went 500,000 and a buck, you just lost.
Search criteria.
So are you overpriced or are you just priced incorrectly is the first thing that I look at.
Sure.
Are we just needing to make an adjustment to be at our maximum potential? But other than that, it is always price. And people say, no, the feedback's been great. They say, oh, pride of ownership, and it's lovely. All 30 people that showed it said that. Well, 30 people have showed it and said it's an incredible house. How come nobody wanted to buy it?
I've got a little story to share after the break about feedback and the thoughts with that, providing feedback as agents. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us here at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us. Scott, are you heading to Mike's today?
I'm heading to Mike's, me and the whole crew. So the kids are.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, kids are going to be there. Jen's going to be there. Yeah, it'll be fun. Again, thanks to Mike every year for doing this. I'm not a big party guy. I don't go to a lot of parties. Not like Ryan, he hits everything. But this one I look forward to. It's a really nice deal.
Yeah, it is. It is a great time. Hopefully you're able to get out, do something fun. Today looks nice weather-wise. We've had a lot of rain. I was just thinking about that driving through the neighborhood yesterday, how everybody's yards last year were yellow.
Yeah.
And just think from year to year, just the changes. And then now I was looking at everybody's lawns and they look like golf courses.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, back to that question we had earlier about, how cleaning up landscaping, and I just think of it as an overall feeling of a buyer. And we've all walked into somebody's house, or we've driven up to somebody's house where it's immaculate. You're like, oh my gosh, these guys really take care of their home. And then you go in the house and it's spotless. And I'm not talking about the spotless where these people clean because they were going to be going on the market at an open house. I'm talking about that feeling that you're like, these people live like this.
Yeah.
And if those two are the combination, that house is going to blow up. Everybody's going to want it, because you can't quantify it, but you can just tell these people live. You open up their cupboards and their cereals alphabetized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Had an interesting, a few weeks ago, Adam Hartung, I thought was really interesting from a credit standpoint. He shared a tip about using a credit card versus a debit card. And we had this recently too, where we had fraudulent charges with credit cards. You can dispute that,
and they give your money back.
You get your money back.
No.
With debit cards, you can't. So credit card, it's important also from a building credit for buyers to get that little credit card, have that, pay at. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Well, no. My immediate thought, as you said that, is understand this, folks. If you have a young kid, young being 21, 22. And you've built into them, do not carry debt, do not have credit cards, be fiscally responsible. That is great. But they do have to have a credit card. They do have to have a car payment. They have to have 3 open lines of credit in order to buy a house. So my biggest thought is Tara Cardenas on my team had a client. They lived with their parents. They had $300,000 in the bank. He had no debt. Car was paid for. Everything was paid for. He could not buy a house. He had to buy it with his cash because
he had no lines.
Because he had no lines of credit. He had no debt. Great job, but he could not buy a house.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Throughout the week, 612-294-6949 is how you can join us at any point. If you're looking to buy, sell, invest in real estate, you have questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out at any point. We are, again, about 5 months out from the election. Is that right?
Yes.
So we'll see what happens again with interest rates from that standpoint too. Obviously, housing being such a big part of everything from a cost standpoint, Scott, because it is, again, we've shared a lot, but affordability is a big challenge right now for people's incomes not keeping up with the cost of housing. What will happen, over 5 months? Will anything happen, or will it just ride as is?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. I'm trying to remember a time where the only other time that was similar, frankly, was 2007, 2008. Different, but we were appreciating fastly. Homes were going up in value a lot.
Right.
Now, what corrected that is not what's going to correct this. Is we had a mortgage crisis that crashed. But it is. People are hurting.
Yeah,
they really are.
We're getting ready to go back live on air. News Talk 830 CCO. It's our final segment. Going to feature a couple last listings and then wrap up for the day. Hope you and your family are able to get out and do something fun. Welcome back to our final segment at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We appreciate you joining us. We've got 2 last listings to touch on. Mike Hilbert has another one. This one's in Lindstrom, 27628 Morgan Avenue in Lindstrom for $580,000. Again, it is just 40 minutes north from Minneapolis, St. Paul in the Chisago Lakes area. It's a 2-story home. It's got 16 acres, so a ton of privacy, abundant wildlife, and great Croon Lake views. It's a 2-story home, 3-bed, 3-bath on a park-like setting. It's got an unfinished walkout basement. There's an additional 1,000 square feet for your custom touches. Private drive. Scott leads to the home it's got an open foyer, kitchen, center island, stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, and again, the main floor has a laundry room, family room, gas fireplace, formal dining, half bath, and there's 2 additional bedrooms and another full bath. They complete the upper level with the master bedroom having an en-suite bath. 27628 Morgan Avenue in Lindstrom, Minnesota for $580,000. Be sure to check those photos out. And then the last one is in Farmington, 1309 Larch Street in Farmington, Justin Voss, agent on the Minnesota real estate team and Remax Advantage Plus. He says you can be in the Twin Cities, be in town with the feel of being up north. It's got wide open space across the street. There's a park with a pond, walking paths, 1,500 plus finished square feet, 2 large bedrooms upstairs, 2 full baths, 1 full bath with an oversized tub. There's a great deck, Scott, with a fenced-in yard. Playground, again, is right outside your back door. It is a beautiful property. You can check that out again. 1309 Larch Street in Farmington, 350,000. Some nice properties.
Yeah, that's very cool. That neighborhood is a really fun neighborhood that Larch is on. They have kind of a backyards that open into a kind of an open space that all the homes use. So the kids, it's a great young family neighborhood.
Yeah, before the break, we were talking about feedback from showings, and this was an interesting comment I saw that as agents, we get an email usually that says, "Hey, Scott, what did your people think about the property during the home showing?" As agents, we really encourage each other to fill that out. It's a courtesy to the fellow realtor to let you know, hey, what's going on? What do your people think of it? Good, bad, and different. It's obviously an inconvenience for people to leave their house for an hour with 4 kids and whatever. So it's just a small courtesy. Well, this was an interesting thought. 2 things. I've heard agents that, especially for a really competitive property, that they will provide very good feedback and say something like, Scott, hey, my buyers really loved the extra touch of landscaping that your people did. They love this. They can tell a lot of care. And sometimes we've seen in multiple offer situations where the seller who gets that feedback remembers that personal touch. And so I want you to comment on that approach. But then the other one I heard, which was interesting, is the agent, they didn't get the approval from their client to do this. But what they did is they sent negative feedback. Hey, Scott, this is 50 grand overpriced, all of these things. And what happened is when they wrote the offer, it really upset that seller. And the agent, the client, the buyer, did not give authority to do that. So how important feedback is in working with a good agent.
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody out there that does not think that sellers make decisions based on, they would say a couple that they like, but the more correct answer, which we talk about all the time, is the less ability to have a problem. So for example, let's take your scenario. Okay, the person that came in feedback and said we're $50,000 overpriced is writing an offer. So is the couple that said, oh my gosh, what great care you've taken. We've seen 15 homes. We're in love with your property. We cannot wait to make it our home. Okay, so now the one with $50,000 that was going to write less is $5 grand more. Well, you already know he doesn't think your home's worth this.
Right.
So what's the potential of there being an issue at the inspection, him being a pain through the entire process, all that stuff? That's what happens.
Yeah, and it's important to think about. It's really important, in providing that feedback. What is the feedback? And Scott, your point's a good one, is people do want to avoid problems on transactions. And I think what we forget as buyers and sellers is there are lots of problems on transactions. That is one of my main jobs with the Minnesota real estate team, is to deal with the problems on transactions, issues, all kinds of issues that can pop up, Scott. So just some important things to think about.
Well, and as a listing agent, I always call it my spider sense, but if you've been doing this long enough, you know when you talk to an agent and you're going over their buyer and you're going, you know if there's an issue, if you have a hesitancy because of how that phone call is going, and you've got another one that is so excited about buying the house and isn't questioning anything, the seller is going to tend to go that direction.
Yeah, it's been a fun show. We've got to thank Dennis, who comes in every Saturday, even on a holiday weekend like this, comes in to produce our show. We really appreciate Dennis, his great work for us as always. Scott, last thoughts for our listeners?
No, we're about a little over the halfway point for the year. I think we're going to have a strong fall, and I think depending on what happens with the presidency, we could start to see interest rates and things kind of settle in. Always a good time to buy. Now is no different. Obviously, it's a great time to sell. This is the best time to sell, second that we've ever had. So just talk to your agent, find out what your situation is and whether this is the right time for you to do whatever it is that you think you want to do.
Yeah, we love helping radio listeners. If you're a buyer, seller, investor, you've got a friend, neighbor, grandson, daughter, whoever who might be interested. Our approach is about providing information, low pressure. We guide you on your timeline when you're ready to buy, sell, invest in real estate. Reach out to the Minnesota Real Estate Team. We would be honored to help you. Again, hope you and your families have a great 4th of July. Great job, bud.
Yeah, you too, Ryan.
Yeah, and thank you again to everybody. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back next weekend here on WCCO. Thanks for joining us on social media. Good work, Scott.
Yeah, you too. Have a great 4th weekend. Come out to Overson's. Come out and see us.
Hey, that shirt is kind of like the shirt that shirt I was wearing the other day.
Oh yeah, for all of you on Facebook, Ryan put a posting out yesterday on the 4th of July weekend. And he was in his button down, which means he's really relaxing because the cardigan sweater was off. So just chilling.
Hey, great job, everybody. We'll be back next